the total fertility rates are dropping across the world and also across Asia. There's just a number of news that we have received over the past couple of months that highlight exactly this. You have South Korea, which still has the lowest total fertility rate in the world, which has just recorded a slight uptick in birth rate, but that's not a change in the overall picture. You have Vietnam, which has recorded its lowest birth rate ever. China, which has had for its third year in a row its population dropping, and Singapore, which has also recorded its lowest total fertility rate ever. So the situation looks pretty gloom no matter how you look at it. Total fertility rate is going down, which means that the total number of kids being born also decreases, and ultimately populations will keep going down across Asian countries. So we see that this is a problem throughout, right? It looks like that regardless of the country you look at, regardless of its economic situation, example, you take Singapore or Vietnam, everyone is facing the same issue. Now, I don't have an explanation for why this is the case, and I feel no one really does. Ultimately, I believe it comes down to a change in the overall attitude of people towards having kids. There was a very good article from the Straits Times, I'm gonna link it in the description below, which was describing how people in Singapore don't feel ready anymore to commit to having kids. All right, so this comes from a societal expectation stemming from the past of giving your 100% to kids and helping your kids be as successful as possible, ideally more than you were, right? And ultimately committing yourself to your kids. So forgetting about yourself, your individual self, in order to favor your kids' future, right? So in a sense, you could say forgetting about the present in the hope of having a wonderful future, not for yourself, but for your kids, right? So there is a change in attitude overall. You might have heard about an expression that is now used, or an acronym used to describe DINKs, right? So that is dual income, no kids couples. So you have an increasingly number of people who get married but without intention of having kids, right? Here, of course, we could also talk about couples which cannot have kids, but that's an entirely different story. Let's not digress too much. So you have people who get together but are not having kids for a number of reasons. As I said, I think that the mindset shift is real. Ultimately, people want to have a better, life for themselves. They want to afford a better lifestyle, which might include, branded clothing, traveling and whatnot, you name it, right? Better cars, better homes. But this is an issue, right? This is a very, very big issue. And my argument is as follows. Ultimately, I believe that this attitude of not wanting kids because you want to focus on yourself stems from an individualistic standpoint, which is totally fair. I think that in the West, we have had that forever. In the West, meaning Western countries, from a geographical standpoint. Now, this is also coming to Asia. We all know that Asia, or you probably heard that in Asia, societies tend to be a lot more collectivistic. People are expected to think about the bigger society or population at large, the communities at large, instead of focusing on themselves. But this is also shifting, and you see that everywhere. I think a very clear evidence of that is that historically you had multi-generation families living together. So you would typically have your parents moving with you when you got married, right, in order to take care of them at their old age. This is not really happening anymore as much, or not as much as it did in the past. So as I was saying, this entire shift is stemming from a rise in individualistic attitudes, and this is a problem, I believe, because if you just think about the consequences of this, again, from an individualistic perspective, what you will see is that long run you're gonna have a bunch of people who are truly on their own. Now the reality is that if you don't have kids, and with a societal setup where this is happening, you're gonna have a decreased number of pooled resources. Now, the way Western societies, and here I'm including developed Asian countries as well, right? I'm looking at Japan, South Korea, or Singapore, or Hong Kong for that matter. You have structures or you have welfares which are designed so that we pool resources together via tax, pension systems, etc. And then those resources get redistributed across, the population, and especially towards old people, right? So you have these systems which are truly built on numbers, right? There is strength in numbers in this case. You want to have as many people as possible contributing. Now, when you have a setup of people who are not having offsprings, they have no kids, then I think that's very clear. This setup does not work. All right. So even if you look at it from an individualistic perspective, what it means is that when you're old, there's gonna be no one to look after you, and there's gonna be absolutely no resources for you. Why? Not because the country governments are evil or bad or anything like that. It's just that there is no resources, right? So there is truly just two solutions to all of this. Now, can you change people's attitudes? I don't think so. You have a number of countries which have tried over time to push all sorts of reforms, welfare programs, etc., to boost the fertility rate, to boost the number of births per person. It doesn't work. It just doesn't work. You can look at any numbers, you can look at Scandinavian countries doing that. There's all kinds of different approaches to it. It just doesn't work because if people don't want kids, that's it, right? You cannot really change that. Now, so you have to think about how to address a situation which is just gonna be materializing very very soon, right? And again, I think this is something to stress very much, is that this is not a problem that we're gonna have 60, 70, 100 years from now. It's going to happen over 20, 30, 40 years, right? So within our own lifetime. So it's not a problem that we can delay or postpone to future generations. This is going to impact all of the things, all of the people who don't want to have kids, etc. Right? Everyone really. So there is just two solutions. One is immigration. The other one is automation. And here I'm obviously excluding the option that there is no solution. So I'm hoping that there is a solution to this. Now, let's look at immigration. Immigration does not work. Does not work. Again, you can look at any country. You take it when you take in mass immigration, which is what you need with the current trend you're seeing, then you typically struggle to immigrate this new number of immigrants within your society. So in best case, you start having a bubble, right, of people with a different background that never really integrate, or basically the minority turns into the majority, right? That we're not really seeing that in Europe, for example, but that has happened historically, right? We have a couple of examples. Now, so immigration doesn't really work. The only way to make it work is if you very, very strictly regulate it, and you have a very strong government that can take strong action. I'm looking at the UAEs. I'm looking at Singapore. Right? But this is not a solution that works for everyone, really, right? And again, if you want to compete for immigration, that's a race to the bottom, right? Because we said that the problem of demographics is affecting everyone, right? So you're gonna have people competing for humans, really, despite of how weird it sounds. Now the other solution is AI slash technology, which will robots, if you will. Now this is, I would say, a better solution in a sense that it does not come with the challenges that I was just describing with immigration, integrating immigrants, assimilating them into societies. At the same time, getting AI slash technology to work is not a given at all. So firstly, we're seeing that any type of technological breakthrough, and incrementally so, requires an abnormous amount of resources, of investments, which the vast majority of countries don't have. So that's problem number one. Problem number two is that we're assuming that a breakthrough is going to take place. I think it's going to come, but that's my personal opinion, right? It's not a fact. So that's also something to consider. Ultimately, to summarize, it's very clear to me that there is not a straightforward solution. There is not a one size fits all solution, but the step number one is definitely acknowledging the fact that this is a trend which will not change. Is something that has to be taken seriously. If not yesterday, right? We should have done it yesterday. But if not yesterday, then today is the best time to tackle it. And as much as possible, it needs to be addressed. Relentlessly. With any plan must be backed by a sufficient number of resources and by strong commitment by any government and civil society as much as possible. Yeah, let me know what you think about the problem of aging populations and what's your opinion? How do we fix this?